Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'll be going over the books that I read over the summer. So basically my summer wrap-up video. These are the books that I read from May to August, which is kind of the period that I wasn't in school. I've got 14 books here for you today, and so I'll just be basically doing a quick summary of them because there's kind of a lot to go through, and giving you my quick thoughts on the matter. So let's just jump right in. So the first book I have for you today is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Moyer. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I'm sorry if I butcher any other authors' names in this video. But yes, Gideon came highly recommended from this girl that I volunteer with. It's basically been billed as lesbian necromancers in space, and I think that is highly accurate. I really enjoyed it. I loved Gideon, the main character. I loved Taro, who's the other kind of main character. Great setting, perfect novel, and as you'll see later, I also I'm loving the sequel. Alright, so next up we have Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco, I think. I'm sorry again. So yes, this is basically a book about a girl who wants to be a detective in late 1800s, early 1900s London, and is trying to figure out who Jack the Ripper was. He was famously a serial killer who was never caught. In terms of like my thoughts, I thought it was a very cute YA novel, pretty thin too, so like a nice light read. I know that there are sequels that come after this one. I don't think I'll be personally reading them, not because I didn't find the setting interesting, but more so because the characters themselves just weren't, I wasn't as invested in them as I would want to be to delve in the sequel. But I still enjoyed the book series, just maybe not as much as other series that I have read. Alright, so next up we have my favorite read of the summer, which is Beach Read by Emily Henry. This book is about two writers, one of which is a romance novelist and the other one is a more adult fiction, kind of serious writer, who become neighbors in their respective beach houses. And this is a romance novel, they fall in love. Is that a spoiler? I don't know if that's a spoiler. I don't think so. But anyways, I adored this book. Love the characters, love the setting. I enjoyed how I found how each character felt like really fleshed out in their own individual way and not just there for the romance plot of it. So yes, my favorite read. Really loved it. Highly recommend. Alright, so next up we have The Mercies by Kieran Millwood Hargrave, and this essentially is a retelling of the witch trials that occurred in Norway in the 1600s, and it basically tells the story of an indigenous woman on this island that is suddenly kind of overtaken by a Scottish commissioner. It's a sapphic story, which I found really refreshing. I really enjoyed that aspect of it because I find that in most sapphic stories that I read, you don't really get, or at least I haven't been exposed to ones in kind of like a mystical historical setting, which I really enjoyed. But yes, otherwise I liked the characters. I wish I got a bit more of the story of these characters in general. I don't know, I found it a little bit short, especially to the end. I found she kind of rushed the ending, but overall I really enjoyed it. I loved the rest of the story, beautiful, and I will definitely be reading anything else that she puts out. Next up, we have another romance novel, which is You Deserve Each Other from Sarah Hoggle. This, again, romance story, as you will see, it's kind of a running theme in the books that I read, but this one is basically about Naomi and Nicholas, who are married to each other but detest each other, and it kind of recounts the months leading up to their wedding and kind of like their rekindling relationship throughout. I love this one just almost as much as I loved Beach Read. Very good. I've actually reread it, I think twice since I first read it in July. So good, like perfect amount of fluffiness, perfect amount of angst. Just loved it. So next up I have a series of books that are a bit different from the things that I have shown you so far. The first one is 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act, Helping Canadians Make Reconciliation with Indigenous Peoples a Reality by Bob Joseph, who is an Indigenous author. So this book, kind of as it states, goes through 21 different parts of the Indian Act, which is a piece of legislature created by the Canadian government in the late 1800s, I think. Yes, 1876. Very, very, very insightful and very eye-opening at the same time. Like it says, it goes through 21 different parts of the Indian Act, and what I really liked about Bob Joseph's writing is that he really makes it understandable, I guess, for like regular Canadians. You don't really need a political science degree to be able to understand what he's saying in here, understand the pieces of legislature that he's discussing. Great read. Highly recommend for every Canadian. I think honestly it should be recommended reading in schools. Just really good book. Next up, we have a book of poetry, actually, Autopsy by Dante Collins, who is an American Black author. It is a series of poems dealing with his grief with losing his mother, and also about his experiences as a Black male in America. Really, really great poems, really heart-wrenching, especially the ones about his mom and his grief, but also, again, eye-opening as a white Canadian woman about the experiences he faces as a Black man in the United States. So, really great poetry. Short, too, if you're not looking for a big read. Hard to get through in some places. Obviously, it's about, death, racism, all those kind of, like, heavy-hitting topics, but important to read, I think, and very, very good, too. So this next book is really kind of like the most out of left field one compared to the rest of what I read, and that is because it was gifted to me, and that is right here, right now, Politics and Leadership in the Age of Disruption by Stephen Harper, who was the Prime Minister of Canada before the current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. And he basically discusses the rise of populism in the United States, mostly Donald Trump. Again, this is really not the type of book that I usually read, but it was gifted to me, and it was a good read. I don't typically agree with a lot of Stephen Harper's policies, but insightful. He makes some good points, some others that I don't necessarily agree with, but still. Not terrible. This next book is probably my most disappointing read of the summer, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. And, well, first off, what it's about, it's kind of about this relationship between these two characters, Catherine and Heathcliff, in the 1800s. That's basically it. I'm really sorry if you like Wuthering Heights and I'm ruining or I'm dissing the book like this, but really disappointing. Firstly, because it's such a nice cover and like dust jacket. I saw this at the bookstore and I immediately adored it. And because it was so hyped in society, I don't know. In my mind, I placed this on like the same level of Pride and Prejudice, Emma, Sense and Sensibility, all of those things, and it just did not deliver. I'm gonna try to not spoil why, but I just don't like Catherine or Heathcliff as characters. I just did not find them to be good people. I don't think they're written to be good people, but I just couldn't sympathize or empathize with them in any way, so I just couldn't get through. Like, I got through it, I finished it, but I just was kind of like skimming by the time I got to the end, so not my favorite. Not my favorite classics. I try to read a classic a year, which is why I picked it up. But yeah, sadly will only be on my shelf because of how gorgeous this edition is. Next up, we got a book that I really enjoyed. It's called The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. And it basically, I don't want to give too much away because I really enjoyed going into this and not knowing much about the book, but it's basically about 6 different characters who become embody the 6 different boroughs of New York City and kind of have to defend it. And that's as much as I'm gonna say, because I think it really, really is much cooler to go into this not knowing a lot about it. But I enjoyed this book so much. I love New York City. I don't live in New York City, but my favorite place in the entire world. And I felt like this, even though I'm not a New Yorker, I felt like this was like a really nice, insightful like look into New York and like what it would be like to be a New Yorker. Also, the mystical elements of it were really cool and kind of like new to me. I don't know, I hadn't ever read science fiction like this, so that was definitely a fun experience. Definitely up there as one of my favorite books, next to Beach Read. So good, so good. Highly recommend. Alright, so next up we have This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone, which is a book about 2 different kind of soldiers on different sides of the war. So you have red and then you have blue, who send letters back and forth between each other. This book was definitely really well written. I really enjoyed the writing styles of the 2 different authors. I also read somewhere that they each wrote kind of each of the characters' letters. So one of them wrote Red's letters exclusively and the other one wrote Blue's, which I thought was super, super interesting. So yes, really like the writing style. It's not up there in like my favorites of this wrap-up, mostly because I wish we got more kind of the backstory. I know it kind of helps with the mystery that we didn't get much backstory, but I would have liked more than what we got, just to connect with the characters better. But definitely a good, solid read. Pick it up if you're into very detailed writing styles, and if it interests you in any other way. Next up, we have, to no one's surprise, another romance novel, and that is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the companion novel to Get a Life, Chloe Brown, which I haven't read yet, but most likely will pick up in the future. So, Take a Hint, Danny Brown is about Danny, who is a English professor that's kind of like the cynic in the relationship, doesn't really believe in love. And then we have Zafir, who is the security guard at her university, who's kind of like, you know, the one who likes romance and believes in romance and all those good things. And they basically decide to start faking a relationship to help out Zafir's charity when they kind of get caught in a compromising position after a fire drill at school. I love this book. Again, like I said, I like most romance novels that I read, but this one in particular, I really loved Zafir. I loved kind of his struggles in the book, which I won't mention because of spoilers, but great struggles. Not great struggles, I meant great way to represent his struggles. I also really like Danny. I found that she was really refreshing to read, as like usually you'll find in romance novels that the female character, at least in heterosexual romance novels, is the one who's like believes in romance and all that, and I thought it was really refreshing to see her not be the kind of flip that stereotype around. Very refreshing, very good, highly recommend. And then second to last, we have Lovely War by Julie Berry, which is basically a story about 2 different couples, one of which has a soldier that's in the British Army during World War I, and the other one of which is a Black American soldier in the war as well. I loved this book. Really awesome. Again, are we surprised? I am a sucker for romance, but not only that, I found the like effort put into the historical aspect of the novel was also so well done, especially for Aubrey, who's the Black American soldier in the book, who's also a pianist. And I found that it was really eye-opening to read about his experiences in the war, and then in general like what it was like to be a Black American soldier in the war, and like kind of like the discrimination they faced from their own servicemen, which was super interesting. As you can see, she added a historical note and like all the research that went into that aspect of the book. So really enjoyed learning about that. I hadn't ever learned about that before, but on the other side, also really loved the romances, loved the plot, loved everything about it basically. It was so immersive and just so well done. So good. So good. Finally, and this is cheating a little bit, because The Lovely War was the last book that I have actually finished to this point, but I am hoping to finish this next book by the time my school starts, which is Wednesday, so I'm adding it in here just to have it in here. But that is Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and I just realized that we started with Gideon and we're ending with Harrow, which seems very fitting. But yes, I just started this book, sequel to Gideon the Ninth. I can't really say much more than that because of spoilers, but I'm very excited to read it because I loved Harrow. She was my favorite character in the first one, so I am excited to continue on with her story. The one thing I will say though is that this has white pages, even though it's a first edition, and Harrow, let me see if I can pull it out here. Oh, Harrow has black edges, even though it's a first edition as well. So I don't know why they decided to change that. Maybe production issues with COVID-19 and stuff like that. But very excited to read it. So that's it for my summer wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will not attempt to hold up all of the books like other booktubers do because I fear I might hurt myself, but here is the baby part of my stack if you'd like to see. So yes, hope you enjoyed. Give it a like and subscribe if you did. If you don't want to do that, that's perfectly fine either. I hope you have a nice day, and I will see you soon, hopefully. Bye!